are you? Nice to see you. Now today it was a really beautiful sunny day and I went for a walk outside. And it was quite nice, if I'm honest, to have a bit of time to myself, just to not have to talk to anybody, not have to do anything, just to rest in the sunshine. And I sat on a log and I thought, some peace and quiet at last. Then I realised that the birds were making a great noise. They were singing their hearts out, saying, it is spring, isn't it wonderful? Silence. Now, what does that make you think of? It might make you think about tests, particularly if you're in year 6. It might make you think about the 2-minute silence that we have on Remembrance Day as a mark of respect. It might remind you of very strict times in class when you're not allowed to speak. Peace and quiet, perhaps. Maybe dull and boring if nothing's happening. Maybe it's even a little frightening because when it's really quiet and you hear a little noise, it can be really scary. But there's very, very little silence in our lives. Because we've got TVs on, we've got phones, we've got computers, we've got people nattering and chattering all around us. And some people find it really hard to be in silence. They find it uncomfortable. It's not everybody's cup of tea. But Christians, and actually lots of other religions too, would say that you need quiet for time with God. And that's what Lent is about, time with God. So this is one way to be closer to him. I'm going to tell you a story about a man who lived thousands of years before Jesus was born. His name was Elijah. Now, Elijah was a prophet of God. That means he took God's messages out to the people, told everyone around the things that God wanted them to hear. And often they weren't very good messages. They were telling off messages. They were saying, you need to change your ways. Stop doing bad things and turn back to God, or there'll be trouble. Well, it's a pretty awkward life when you're always telling people things that they just don't want to hear. And Elijah was sad and fed up. And he was alone. He was the only prophet, the only messenger of God in Israel at the time. And he was really just too tired to keep on delivering God's messages anymore. Can you imagine how lonely he must have felt? And how tired he must have felt, being the only one standing up to bad people and telling them that they needed to be doing better. He must have been very afraid as well, because the Queen of Israel at the time had said that she wanted to see him dead. He'd run off. Now he really was alone, in the quiet, feeling that he might as well just give up. But then a voice came and said, Elijah, go and stand at the top of the mountain, for God is coming by. So Elijah went to the top of the mountain and he waited. He waited to meet God so that he wouldn't be feeling so lonely, so that he would feel encouraged. And he waited to see the power of God passing by. Well, first he heard a huge wind. It was so loud. But God wasn't in the wind. Next, he was stumbling about because of an earthquake. Huge rocks were splitting. The noise was astonishing. But God wasn't in the earthquake either. Then there was a wave of fire came across the landscape, fierce and crackling and destroying things. It was so loud. But God wasn't in the fire either. Then there was silence. And Elijah had the chance to connect with God. He heard God's voice, its still, small voice in the silence. And so in Lent, we are remembering to make a little space to be quiet with God. Because Elijah, when he had that quiet space, remembered that God had always looked after him. He'd always heard the cries of Elijah's heart when things were too much. And he wouldn't stop now. In that quiet, Elijah felt restored. He had new hope and new purpose and could carry on doing a very difficult job. Let's just be quiet for a moment. And just say, in our hearts, I'm here, God. It's nice to be with you. I'm going to say a prayer, and if you want to make it your prayer, you could say Amen at the end with me. Sometimes, Lord, often, I don't know what to say to you, but still I come in a quiet, the comfort of two friends meeting in silence. That's when I learn most from you, when my heart slows down, when my mind stops racing. I let it go and I wait in the quiet, realising without words that you are here. Amen. See you soon, my lovelies.